Hello and welcome to the News from Outdoors. Today we begin with a quick recap of the Vietnam War. Vietnamese nationalist Ho Chi Minh formed a communist-friendly nationalist group called the Viet Minh. He crafted a Vietnamese Declaration of Independence, which France did not like because they have colonies in Vietnam. The United States began supporting France in their effort to fight Vietnamese nationalists because of China's fall to communism and Korea's. President Eisenhower saw it important to contain and was worried about a domino effect in Vietnam. After French fighting and Vietnamese fighting in Vietnam, the Viet Minh owns North Vietnam and pro-West regime owns South Vietnam. The United States placed Ngo Diem in South Vietnam. The North formed the Viet Cong military to reunify Vietnam after Ngo Diem decided not to hold national elections. Kennedy took office and continued to support South Vietnam. Under Kennedy, troops in Vietnam went from 2,000 to 15,000. Diem was a horrible leader, anti-Buddhist, anti-everything Vietnamese, and was quickly overthrown by his military with the aid of the United States. Shortly after, Kennedy was killed as well. Lyndon Johnson took over as vice president. In August 7, 1964, the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution was passed, which authorized the president to, quote, take all necessary measures to repel armed attack against United States forces. Shortly after, the Viet Cong attacked the United States bases, and the United States responded with air assault on North Vietnam. The Viet Cong used hiding, camo, booby traps, and other sneaky tactics in this war. The United States used napalm and Agent Orange to draw them out of the jungle. The Ho Chi Minh Trail was their supply trail that went through Cambodia and Laos, so Johnson was not down to take it. Bombing from the United States killed over 220,000 Vietnamese between 1965 and 1967, and by 1966, over 6,700 Americans were killed. In the United States, there has been a very large credibility gap. General William Westmoreland said, "We're so close," but he said that a long time ago, and the war wasn't done. As time went on, people, even Congress, grew skeptical. Congress started to have educational hearings on Vietnam just to see what was going on. Teachers and students in universities also had teach-ins where they would sit around and discuss events going on in Vietnam. The draft system was also pretty bad because they skipped over people in college, which meant that a majority of the Americans going to Vietnam were African American or just like poor. The Tet Offensive was a pretty big battle where the Viet Cong attacked all air bases, major cities, and capitals in Vietnam, in South Vietnam. The Hue was the bloodiest battle. It took 2 days to drive the North Vietnamese out, and when we did, we found mass graves of political leaders and such. Then President Nixon was elected, and he slowly started to pull out United States troops through Vietnamization, which eventually ended the war. And then after all the United States troops were out, the North took over anyways, and Vietnam fell to communism. Today we're going to be talking with a field reporter who's all the way in Vietnam. Keanu?
Hi, I'm Keanu. I'm out here in Vietnam in the battlefield. And look at this poor man bleeding out here. Sir, I would like to ask you a question. What do you think of the war?
I'm bleeding out for a country I don't call home.
See how our men are being killed out here? Communism spread into Vietnam is not really strategically important to the U.S.
Now, this war we're fighting all the way across the world is not worth it. The spread of communism in these areas is not directly strategically important to the United States' well-being. We're losing thousands of Americans' lives, and we're also paying millions of taxpayers' money just to go off and fight this meaningless war across the sea. So from this dove to you, bring our troops home. Alright, so today with me I have Kai, who is a known hawk and I'm going to be asking them some questions from their point of view. So why is it that we should stay in Vietnam when there's a lot of anti-war protests and stuff like that going on? Why do you think we should stay in Vietnam?
Well, actually, the demonstrators are a very vocal minority. 70% of the country supports the U.S. staying in Vietnam.
Okay, so why do you think we need to stay in Vietnam?
Leaving South Vietnam would leave it to fall to the communist Northern Vietnam, and this would be a failure of the U.S.'s broader policy of containing communism, and it would empower the supporters of communism, such as Soviet Russia and China.
Okay. Today we have a field reporter out on the scene.
Go.
Now, this war we're in all the way across the world is not worth it. The spread of communism in these areas is not directly